OK, so it's time for my predictions for 2019. But before I gaze into my crystal ball, let's remind ourselves of what I guessed would happen this time last year. Oh. I see Brenda from Bristol...
Can you see?
...looking upset again as we have another general election.
Yeah.
And Mrs May won't be Prime Minister after it.
I agree.
I see an old bloke with grey hair moving into number 10. No, it's not Junic. I think it'll be Jeremy Corbyn. But he won't have an overall majority, so he'll be there as the leader of an anti-hard Brexit alliance. I see tens of thousands of people protesting against the visit of President Trump out on the streets. I see England getting to the final 8 of the World Cup.
Oh, I don't know about that.
And I think our very own Michelle Dewberry will finally meet Mr. Right.
Ah.
And I thought I looked ridiculous last Forget Mystic Meg. As you can see, with the exception of England's run to the World Cup semi-finals and the inevitable protests against President Trump, my record last year was pretty grim. So, first prediction for 2019. Here we go again. The return of Mystic Meg. We won't be leaving the EU at the end of March. I believe Parliament, not necessarily the government, will decide to extend Article 50. Secondly, there will be a second referendum in 2019. The people's vote will happen, and horror of horrors, the Daily Mail will support staying in the EU. I don't believe Mrs May will be Prime Minister this time next year. And more controversially, I think Jeremy Corbyn will also be on his bike by next December. Now, I know everyone has had the B word up to here, so apologies if my predictions are dominated by Brexit, but I'm not going to risk betting on Michelle's love life again.
Yes, I think you're onto something. Last year you did look an absolute fool, even better. God knows, if we're all still alive, what they'll do with you in 2019. OK, so number one, Britain won't leave the EU. It's an Act of Parliament on the 29th of March next year. Unless you're telling me they've got time to vote in another Act of Parliament to stop the Act of Parliament that's already voted.
Nick, you know that Parliament can unilaterally revoke Article 50, which means we can pause and then have time to do any machinations necessary.
I think that would be the most dangerous thing to do.
Yes, no, we're not discussing what you think is the most dangerous thing to do. What I'm saying is
that's what legally possible. It is legally possible.
That's what I think is going to happen, because I don't think there's a majority for any option in Parliament, and therefore I think they will have to pause.
But do you think there's a majority for anything in the country?
Well,
yes.
That's what I'm saying about if you have a second referendum.
Exactly.
I wouldn't sit here today and predict what the result is.
No, well, I think you should. I think
if I did, I think it will be 52-48 the other way, which I think is not enough.
Do anything.
We're back where we were.
Yeah, but I think you're absolutely wrong. I think we will be leaving the EU. I do not think there'll be a second referendum. I think we will leave with a no-deal scenario. And I think at the very... And I think you're right about Corbyn. I think he'll be out on his ear this time next year. I think Mrs May will still be there. I don't want her to be, but I think she will be. And I think if we say we're leaving with a no deal, I predict that the EU at the 11th hour will give us a kind of deal.
I think you're wrong on every single particular.
Well, I think you're wrong. I think you're wrong.
Well, I kind of wish Greg had predicted something like what Carol's saying, given your track record, because then I'd be more optimistic that we'll get what you are saying, which is what I would like, which is a second referendum, which I think might have.
I did get England to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, you've got, you know, there's a glimmer of hope. I mean, I agree. I don't think we'll be leaving this year. I don't think there are enough unreasonable, gung-ho people in this country to hold our economic future to ransom to go out on a no-deal scenario. I just don't think there are enough people who would be willing to take that kind of risk with our country, especially since the people who wanted Brexit, just has to be done, are the ones who supposedly care most about the future of this country and its glorious status in the world.
We just don't accept your scenario.
Well, I don't accept your scenario. I mean, you know, this is prediction, so I'm not saying what I want to happen is what's going to happen, but I just don't think that in 3 months' time we'll be leaving. So I hope you're right about that.
Well, I am Scrooge, and as Scrooge, remember he had some terrible dreams. but none of them are going to be as bad as crashing out without a deal. I think the dream is terrifying.
I think we'll prosper.
Should we broaden it out? You don't think it'll be Mrs May, you don't think it'll be Jeremy Corbyn. Those are like your third and fourth predictions.
Well, I think Jeremy Corbyn is basically a Brexiteer leading a Remainer party.
Yes.
And that's not sustainable.
And the Prime Minister's a Remainer trying to get a Brexit.
Yes,
nearly, but I managed to get away with
it.
Just stopped in time. So who will be at the helm?
Who will be at the helm?
Yeah, of the country. Who will be the Prime Minister?
Oh, I think there will be a Conservative Prime Minister.
But do you have any idea who might that be?
No,
do you want it have to be a Leaver or a Remainer, Greg?
I think it'll be a Remainer, and I think it'll be one of about 3 or 4.
You see, we're back
It'd be
to
a
square one.
Remainer.
Yeah, you see, it's back. You see, because Greg doesn't think Brexit is going to happen, therefore a Remainer is going to happen.
You're out now, aren't you?
It is
I'm out of
You'll have to start giving clothing.
I'll be begging on the street.
It is interesting. I'm the only person who hasn't put any money in the box, in the jar. But I'm going to make another prediction, which has got nothing to do with politics. I think Kate Middleton will have another baby next year.
OK, that's come out of nowhere. All right.
I'm going to make a prediction. I think Meghan Markle's going to have a baby next year.
I think we can probably all...
I
think we can all agree with that.
You can do all the predictions.
Yeah.
And I'll make another prediction that you three will have to apologise to me when we've left the European Union, and by this time next year we'll be doing OK. You'll say you were right.
Well, by this time next year...
We'll say
You'll say I was right.
That we were going to crash out, or that it was a good idea.
No. By this time next year, we will be out.
A car crash.
How do you know?
How do you know that exactly?
How do you know?
I remember even Brexiteers don't think
I've told this story before.
for this country.
This is not true.
To leave
That is not true.
I remember clashing with Ken Livingstone, who was a very famous mayor of London, who introduced the congestion zone into London.
I clashed.
No, there are other people who've just reminded me. No, I wasn't reminding you. Of course, I wasn't doing that. And I came in, and we had a really full-on row. We actually got on fine personally. And then when I've told this story before, when the red light went off, and therefore he was able to talk, Ken Livingstone said, because he always starts in reality, and I think the same applies here, it won't be as great. This was Ken Livingstone. It won't be as great as I think it's going to be, and it won't be as bad as you think it's going to be. As with all things, it will be somewhere in the middle. And I think we're not going to crash out, and neither is it.
Let's ask one more prediction from each, not about Brexit.
Well, I just gave it. Kate Middleton, I think, is going to have a baby.
Right.
Come back to me. I'm thinking about it.
All right, positive one.
England's cricket continues to triumph, and we miss Alistair Cook, and he gets his knighthood, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Jose Mourinho will return and lead Chelsea. I don't know.
I'd like to take a side bet on that. I think that's
I think Rachel's going to get a new column, and it's not going to be made out of plastic.
She's got a column. There you go.
Right, that
actually, Nelson's column.
For this
Nelson's column. Here's
going out as we went in chaos. It's been another crazy, topsy-turvy 12 months. We on The Pledge have done our best to make sense of it all. But it's safe to say that our attempts to analyse and explain what's going on have not always been successful. You're going to so enjoy this, guys. Have a look.
The UK's Department for International Development works in deprived areas of the...
Hang on, I've got to get this organised. I am in complete...
It's Wales, Plymouth. No, it's Wales. It's somewhere in Wales, Johnny.
No, it's Plymouth.
It's Plymouth in Devon.
Yes.
Oh, right. Sorry, Mr Murphy. OK, so...
Anywhere west of Brentford.
Yes.
It's just Wales.
Why haven't you changed the to Q?
Just say it yourself, Greg. How hard is it, mate?
Because I'm sitting there and I comes black.
Typical manager, right? It's not manager's fault, it's the bloody soldier saying the line. You say it yourself, you stupid Someone excuse Malone. We've lost her. We've just lost her.
You know when your mum and dad start singing?
R-E-S-P-E-C-T. I think that I can take
brilliant.
it because it took so long to make it, and I'll never find that recipe again. Oh, no!
In Britain, Siri is male. That could be, according to some reports.
I don't know that.
It's worse than Carol.
I'm going to have to unmute it at the last minute.
What happened there?
I sneezed and
I thought...
No, unfortunately, I've got a bad back.
I thought it was a cardiac arrest. We're going to get some headlines at last. We let Dyke. Hope you've... That's hope... 3, 2, 1...
Guys, what a year.
Well, can you apologise for your potty mouth? It's terrible all the time.
Hello, you and him, the worst of the whole panel.
No, I don't know about that.
More
But it wasn't a swear
Who knew they behaved so badly off air? That's it for this episode. This season, and even this year of the pledge. It's been a blast. Thanks for watching. Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas!
And a Happy New Year!
Yes.